I got that CMOS, baby, call me a CMOS, baby. Do that body good like CMOS, baby. I'm a leader, I'ma take you to the treetop, baby. I care about your health, did you hydrate lately? I got that CMOS, baby, call me a CMOS, baby. Do that body good like CMOS, baby. I'm a leader, I'ma take you to the treetop, baby. I care about your health, did you hydrate lately? All right. Peace and love, y'all. Welcome to the Verbal Apothecary, where we bringing you the herbals and the verbals. And we heavy on the herbals today because we got some tea brought to you by Jessica, my guest today. And I'm happy to have her here. Jessica is someone who is very about that natural life, someone who takes care. She even made this tea with care by hand. She's going to talk a little bit about her products. But I'm happy to have some divine feminine energy with me on this podcast because I'm always trying to get a spectrum of perspectives on what health and wellness is in our communities, so we can get closer to that and all enjoy our time on this earth to the utmost and fullest. So welcome, Jessica, to the Verbal Apothecary.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm very happy to be here. Yes. Let's see. So we can start with tea. We've been drinking tea here. I'll say that I'm a health educator. So I studied health education. I've always been interested in health. I was an athlete, and my mom was kind of like, I saw it like, oh, we have a big family, so we have to eat like economically and like beans and rice. You always got to eat the vegetables, whatever, right? And this is, any kind of beans and rice you can think of. This is black beans and rice. This is red beans and rice. This is pinto beans. This is lentils. Like chickpeas. There's just a million ways to do it. But I think, I had a really large family, and my mother did have us eat well. And it was important. We knew that we needed to eat healthy for our bodies, for our healing, and for our growth. And sometimes like we had chronic conditions. Like I know I had a couple chronic conditions, so I always thought about it like, oh, I need to be healthy. But I never really thought like my mom was a health nut or anything like that. But something that was always in my house was tea, and at my mother's home, but also way back with Granny. You know what I mean? Like if your stomach hurt, you didn't want to go to school, you drink some tea. Later, I lived in kinship care, so a form of adoptive foster care, and I would drink tea. Like they would make tea, even when we were friends before I ever went to live with this family. They always made tea after school. All the kids would sit in the table and do their homework. Like it was like the house where everybody kind of like went and spent time working in the room doing homework. We kind of did that for a couple hours, and then we would just go kind of like play or whatever. But there was this foundation of like, you come in, you have a tea, you have a snack, or you have tea and a snack, and you kind of handle your business. And so, or when it comes time to go to bed at night, you have some tea, you handle your business. So tea has always been like a huge part of my life. And I love coffee, I will say that. But I think like I fast forward, and I started drinking other things, what I mean? As a young adult, specifically, of course, drinking alcohol. I wasn't a huge soda drinker just because I've always been health conscious. Yeah. But I definitely like decided that pretty much coffee, tea, we're gonna do it for me. Now alcohol, there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of things wrong with it, I will say. It's a pretty low vibration. It's quite a medicine. Most people aren't using it that way. And at the time uses, I was self-medicating, but like in the wrong intervals, right? It wasn't like I had a flu that needed to be kicked out, right? But I realized at one point from doing organizing around Black and Brown communities, organizing around specifically public health and violence, state violence, and terror, state terror, as well as thinking about in the health world, right? There's like some severe gaps and impacts that are happening to the Black community, or to Black and Brown communities, or to impoverished communities, or to communities in which I am close and enmeshed in, where people are just not surviving. They're not surviving when it comes to diabetes, heart attacks, strokes. We're really not thriving in a lot of ways. Child and maternal health, prostate. Just a million different things are really impacting our health. So as I studied public health, became a health educator, took all these classes on wellness modalities, took a million different types of exercise or training programs, a million diets. I was still burnt out, like I didn't really have I had never really like centered wellness in my life, even though this was like my career. And I did not see the people around me doing that either. Doctors,
Mm-mm.
nurses. I was like, this is, you know, and not to shame folks, but it was just a lot of the same habits that you would see anywhere else. Or, it was the, almighty dollar and the pharmaceuticals just shoving certain things and just, billing and coding and just the way like people were not getting well, but money was for sure being made. And there were all these deficits in getting like the simplest resources to communities, like
Mm.
whether it would be food or even like a health education, somebody come teach you about how to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody could help you grow a bucket to grow the food in, even if you didn't have, like a raised bed or something. And so, like, through all these different years of trying to connect with folks on these ways, like realizing, like, of course, like, there's a huge disconnect between people who are like running, whether it's charity programs or like education program, any of that stuff is usually just coming from a colonized, way. Um, and that didn't feel good to me. That's not how I wanted to connect with people. But I also realized like I'm not even connecting with myself, So how can I find a way to like swap alcohol and coffee,
Mm.
for something else so that my body is not feeling constantly unwell. So I don't have to feel like I have to keep feeding it that. Or I mean, there's other positive things that, were, I had other good habits, but it's just like, it's very often people drink. And so just think about the organizers who are smoking cigarettes together, smoking blunts together, working with all kinds of medicines, not good or bad, but just like in a way that's not always productive or healing or like really looking at the longevity, not just of the movement, but of the joy in our lives, like the whole point of being
Mm.
alive. And so like,
Mm.
that's a huge long breakdown to say like I started showing up with tea. I started making concoctions, infusing herbal teas, hand making small batches loosely, and just juices as well. I would say like I definitely was doing a lot of juices, even like sangrias and other kinds of medicines at one point. I was at one point a bartender, and so I've worked with as a mixologist, I've worked as a herbalist, you know, from pure just luck to be inspired and curious.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I made a divine women smoothie the other day, and just like it just came to me what I wanted to put in it. I put it together, didn't read any recipes, didn't look up anything, and I just kind of like knew these, put them all together. It was the best smoothie I ever made in my life. I made it now like 3 days and 4 days in a row. I was like,
Mm.
this is something that, and this is how it always comes to me when I work with certain things. It's like, now that I've been working with this, I can feel it in my body. It feels so good. I want to share this with somebody else. And so
Mm.
from moon circles, sister circles, a homegirl coming over, a time with a partner where it's like, hey, let's sit down and take some space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from Divine Apothecary, it's a mobile apothecary. So whether I'm showing up with just a thing of tea or whether
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing up with some herbs in a jar or, even
Right.
a plant to harvest together. Sometimes I'm showing up and I'm putting down in the kitchen, I might be making some soup or something like that. But it's, the mission is to like hold space for ourselves and for others,
Mm-hmm.
mostly for, really used to be focused very much on the feminine and then the divine feminine because this was like sister time, this was private time. But it's also like, definitely honoring the sacred masculine. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's not Black and Indigenous, it's definitely allied communities who are like dedicated to our liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And so just, it was like social and community spaces that I was already a part of, where I was already teaching a class, doing a food is medicine workshop, organizing around this or that, you know, where it's like, I'm gonna bring through this other option where you're
Yeah.
gonna have like iced tea instead of, liquor. Or you could have iced tea with your liquor, but like at least it ain't soda. You know what I mean? Like, what is the harm reduction? And so,
Mm.
yeah, I think like that's really it. Like, I will say like I've taken some courses in herbalism. I've learned from others. I learned from family members. I'm a like I said, I'm a study. When you study in any field, you have to kind of keep up on it. And so,
I like that you said that because I am also interested in taking some classes in herbalism. You know, I've also studied just things that have, whenever I come across something I don't know, I at least look it up and
mhm,
store it in my notes for later. Or if I go to a store and I see something that might help me in some way, whether it be to like clear my skin or, hair growth, whatever, and I use it and I like it, what's in it? And then I
right,
look it up, and then I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this is that. And you'll notice sometimes they'll have a scientific name,
mhm,
and then you look it up. Oh, it's just jojoba
right,
oil, or it's
right,
just rosemary,
and
oil. You know.
and that's I honestly think that the plants are asking us to know them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's good for you to know them. It's good for you to even hibiscus. So we got hibiscus here. We're drinking, but hibiscus is great for the hair. It's great for the skin.
Mm,
You know what I
that's
mean? And
true.
so if you are a person who's enjoyed any of those things, like it might be worth just even if it's only once in your life. You don't have to go start a business and do a side hustle and get
Everything
But
is a hustle these days.
and the thing, it's okay. Like it's good to make things from your hands, but like I got a sister who makes an amazing hibiscus hairspray. Flax gel. You can make flax. I mean, we all have flax seeds. Like you can make your own flax gel. Now, sometimes you don't want to go through all that, but if you infuse it with the hibiscus, you won't be mad that you did it at least once. You won't be
Right,
mad that you
right.
did it at least once because it feels good. If you have that type of relationship with your body that you want to check out, like whatever it is that you're, enhancing it or like honoring it and letting the medicine work with it. So like I definitely strongly believe that while some of the medicines and herbs are like, I get into this thing about master plants, not master plants. Some of them are master plants to the degree that it's like you really need to take this with caution. You need to actually know the regimen. You probably should have some kind of supervision or some kind of consultation as you're working through this particular herb. Some things are strong enough for that. And some things are not. Some you just drink your lavender every day, you're gonna be fine. Now, fake lavender, that's another thing there. They've caused it's false scents are carcinogenic and have created like endocrine disruption for like prepubescent boys in terms of like causing breast growth. So that's about lavender. I wouldn't really necessarily want to go there, but I'm just keeping it real. Like these are the things you find out if you just kind of keep up on it because you know not all essential oils are made the same. Not all, and that's what's really cool about being able to say, wow, herbs are relatively easy to grow, or they grow somewhere locally. And I might as well like learn one or two of them, even if it's just the cilantro that I eat on my tacos or whatever. Like working a little bit further with a herb like that, you can get some powerful healing. So like master plan or not, everything's a master plan.
I like that you said master plan, and I want to know what that is, but also just to throw in a little of my 2 cents on that. I feel like there is an importance of knowing where your food is coming from,
Right,
and knowing how it got to you.
right.
Just being aware of that process. I remember learning a few years ago that there was a study and they asked children where ketchup came from, and they all said the grocery store.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh wow, like I can, from a child's mind, I see that makes sense to them, but
Right.
there's a disconnect
Right.
that they don't see the tomato being smushed and smashed and pasteurized and all that to become marketed into this ketchup. And
I think that's a great disservice to our healing that we don't like, and maybe I'm calling us all out right now as I'm not trying to, shame anyone. And I recognize that it's all a process. And again, we can't do everything. There was a time when I was literally like making all my vinegar, like all my dressings, infusing all my, oils, like making everything by hand, tortillas and like breads, like, and meats and soups and like every single thing by hand. I've been plant-based, I've been omnivore. I think that nothing is like a one size fits all for anyone for a whole lifetime.
right.
But I will say like it's all about back to you saying honoring your food and me even saying learning about the herbs. It's one thing to read in a book, it's another thing to like harvest. So you can learn by going, there's meetup groups for people to harvest all the time, different kinds of medicines. But you can learn in those kinds of ways. Sometimes the person who's leading you might not be an expert. It doesn't matter. Like the exposure and the experience is the most important. So you can do it that way. You can go take a class. You can, find a curandura or like some kind of healer or an OG. You know what I mean? Is this
Not sure what that was.
okay? Yeah, like just recognizing that there's, most people's grandmothers, aunties, brothers, sisters, selves know intuitively what works. Even if you only know, oh, my whole life I've been buying shea butter. Try buying some raw shea butter next time you're at the farmer's market, or if you've never been to the farmer's market, check that out. Same thing with the cilantro or whatever else, right? Like we can't necessarily source things in this particular economy in a way, and that's why tea I think is really important because it hit me one day that like the whole world was taken over for spices. This is supposed to be the West Indies, right? This is what they thought it was when they never got here, but said they did, right? So it's like these are healing medicines that now are being sold back to us as if we don't know what they are. I mean, they're in our DNA, right? Our ancestors, many different ancestors, have worked with some of these plants all over the world. The plants are not, they might be sourced in one place at this time, right? But like there are many herbs and plants that like are
Everywhere.
have traveled quite a bit.
Ginger.
Have tried, yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, and so I just think that like, yeah, I just think we have to honor that. Like, this is one of the most natural things. Being connected to your food makes a difference, but even being connected to your medicine, you don't need a surgeon for every kind of healing that you go through. It's good to have a surgeon, and we need those. You know, everybody doesn't have to be a botanist necessarily. Not everybody needs to make homemade mayonnaise, mustard, and all of the things. But it's good to know, have a reference that it can be done. You know what I mean? It's good to practice something. You know, we have all the different practices of our lives. And it's good to practice, like, if even if it's just like during the winter time, I will make fire cider.
Fire cider,
you know,
that will wake your game up.
Right.
You'll be like, woo, what was that? You know?
Right. And like, you know, I've had people be like, yeah, just kind of weird about it. Like, just kind of weird about any of those things. Like, oh, how did you, like, what did you don't have to, like, I don't know. I can cook. Like, I can cook. You know, I'm gonna brag on myself. And people who know that, like, I'm known for it. And the people who love how I cook love it. And the people who don't are just people who are usually not very open. Not open to healthy, not open to spices, not open to different cultures. Yeah, because it's usually that. It's usually either just like it's a different kind of spice or texture, which is usually cultural, or it's like too healthy, you know? And to me, like, that's unfortunate. Like, and I used to like change how I ate, you know, and I remember like saying that at one point, like, I'm not about to hang out with people who eat like super garbage. Like, I know that sounds like, again, I'm not canceling nobody. I'm just saying, like, I know myself well enough that like I feel completely confident, like, taking my meals to certain places where I know, you know what I mean, or getting something different. And we can always make a better choice. There was a time where I was like, I can't eat anything, like, nothing's organic, nothing's paleo, everything's processed. Like, I'm really glad. I mean, I became a parent, and there's like, of course, I'm even more worried about health, but like, in some ways, it's like, no, I literally can't make every single thing in my cupboard. I don't have a farm, and I have lived from the land before, and I have lived with animals. I've lived where we've grown our own food, and so that's a huge, you know what I mean? I'm also from the Bay Area, but I've also like lived a life where I've like cultivated and grown my own food, vegetables, medicines, herbs, and that changed my life. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I recognize that, like, between the tea and like being in nature, like, because plant-based healing are like natural healing rituals that are, you know, they don't have to culturally appropriate any like Kemetic or Moroccan or Japanese or even English tea ceremony, right? But like sitting in some kind of intentional space around whatever it is, like,
it could be a hip hop tea circle, like whatever. Just
any of those spaces where you're like saying, like, I'm gonna give myself time to let the tea boil, which is funny because we both know that I didn't really let it boil. It's like lukewarm. But it's also like, give yourself the time for that. But also, like, I'm gonna actually let myself see. I'm not gonna go drive through the Starbucks, and yeah, I'm hate on Starbucks. I'm not gonna go drive through their driveway and get a 200-degree hot thing that's gonna burn me, and I'm gonna be like dropping it. I'm gonna be, oh shit, and get out of the way. That's not how we're supposed to be sitting with this. Like, we've had access at our fingertips to all these different things that people have literally died for. And now, you know what I mean, they like, now that folks see that they're medicine, they're being marketed in all these like upscale ways. Like, there's a million great ways to get like herbal stuff, but once in a while, even if you don't want to be an herbalist, even if you don't want to be a naturalist or whatever, once in a while, just make something, you know, make something for yourself. Like, pick some rosemary in the Oakland Hills, and or in the Oakland Flats, because we got them there too, and dry it out, clean it off, and drink that with your tea. Put it on your food at one point. You know what I mean? Just something from your own hands. It makes a difference. Like, having that relationship, that is where the healing comes from. It's not from like, oh, I bought a capsules of, I mean, you can buy capsules of lots of things, and I do condone, you know, the use of healing medicines. But I also think, like, having some connection with something, even if
Yes.
it's just one thing. If it's your
Yes.
hair that you do that with, if it's your skin that you do that with, if it's, you know what I mean, if it's once a month, I'm gonna boil after I juice my orange juice, and I only want to do it once a month because I don't want, you know, I'm gonna boil the oranges after that with some cinnamon in my house and like bring that aroma into my house while I drink my fire cider that I hopefully loaded up a couple months before.
Now you had mentioned something, the master plan. What is a master plan?
Oh wow! And you know, I don't know. Am I qualified? I think master plants, from my understanding, are some of the most sacred like plant medicines that people that have high powerful uh
Like a superfood
reaction.
would be
Like
equivalent to that,
yeah, I would say, you know, it's
but
interesting.
in terms of
Superfood,
herbs.
but yeah, but in herbs, like, so I'm thinking like you know, the great mother ayahuasca. I'm thinking like ego, but like, you know,
Ginkgo or Ecoba? That's something different.
they're different. Yeah, and ginkgo is high power. Like ginkgo is like memory. It's also like third eye. It's that's a very sacred tree, and it's I've thought about it. My mom had a ginkgo tree in front of her house like my whole childhood, and I was like,
Oh wow.
I knew I loved those leaves. Now you know, so yeah, it took years to be like, okay, oh, I want a ginkgo supplement, to eventually being like, oh, I want to look, what does it really look like? What's the real root of this look like? What's the leaf of it look like? Oh, that's the actual leaf from that tree. Oh, that's the same thing. Oh, okay. Like just even recognizing, wow, the way that these leaves are shaped is kind of like a brain. Like it's interesting how so many foods represent the
What they
things they're
do.
good for, kidney beans and kidneys, and you know,
Beets
just
being
be,
purple like
yeah,
blood, or you know what I'm
yeah,
saying, different things like that. Walnuts look like brains,
right.
right?
So we like know, like we already know. We just have to remember most of the time. And you know, when people tell me like, oh, I don't like tea because maybe they don't like black tea or they don't like green tea, or you know, maybe they just haven't had a really good herbal tea, or maybe they just feel like it's like stiff or stuck up. Who stops and drinks? Like we're this is we in America, like people are drinking there. And I used to live in Texas, so 2 liter people.
Big gulps,
Yeah, they had bigger sizes than were allowed here.
Yeah,
Like I didn't know that when I got here. I was like, oh. But even the 3 liter sodas, like I don't remember seeing those in California, but those definitely existed in Texas. And yeah, so like my people in Texas didn't really eat really. They ate well, but they didn't eat well. Okay. And so it was like colon cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and then or like mental health or like liver failure, like, you know. So I was really thinking
plates
like
of death.
as a black woman, as a mixed race black woman, but like certainly as a person who cared about wanting to live.
Yeah.
I was like, oh hell no, I have to change my life. This doesn't make any sense.
Come on, like we see what's happening, we see what's being marketed to us, and we see the results of it. Like I see what's happening in my family, and I've seen sickness in my family, and it's like, damn, like I want to help. And I've heard from different healers, and maybe you could tell me if this is true. Have you found that it's difficult to make an impact on the people closest to you in terms of your health and healing? Like, you know, some people say that it may be harder for them to hear you because they've seen your growth, so they may not rock with. Oh, I remember when you used to eat McDonald's every day. Like I ain't trying to hear you, or maybe you tell them and they say yeah, and they just keep doing it. Have you experienced that?
It's so interesting. Thank you so much. There's a couple of things I have that I think about that I want to lift up. One is like sometimes it's extremely beneficial to be able to rock in your healing with other people who are close to you, and that's like an intentional bond. We're like I have a sister friend. I love her so much. She be quantum healing. Like we've done so much healing practices together. You know, we're not always in line with the same step. Sometimes we're on the same challenge. Sometimes we're checking in, keeping each other accountable. Sometimes we're on our own journey. But just like the level of like, I'm dedicated to that. Even thinking about sisters that I had another sister years ago who beauty day was a certain type of day, and just like learning like, yeah, we need to take time for these practices because not everything that's beauty. Like beauty is not just superficial. And I think I went through a phase where I was like, oh, makeup is whatever, which is so weird because I worked for makeup companies in college, but like I didn't even really wear a lot. I just like I was a manager or whatever. The point is, I kind of started belittling the idea of like beautifying and adornment as like just a shallow thing. But I realized like a lot of our healing practices, like using ointments, creams, like, you know, taking care of your hair so that it doesn't break off, like these are this is also healing. This is also health. And so for many of us, I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to what you asked, but for many of us, we haven't taken that time because we've been in survival mode. A lot of women are like made to caregive early. I think a lot of it. I think in gender, folks of all genders are having to care for themselves without caregivers from an early age, and so maybe they don't even know how to care for themselves fully. And so that's a whole nother TED talk. But I would say like in my own family, I was early onto health. So like I was always active. I got really, I mean, I became a vegetarian when I was like 18 years old. You know, um, in my 20s, I was like organizing breast cancer runs and like but I was never like super super fit. I just was always like a healthy person. Always like to eat well. I would say like healthy plus. Could like to cook my own food. Had grown my own stuff. Just generally was like working with a lot of really good healing practices at one point. And then capitalism came through. And as I, almost made more money, work became like the focus. I was like, now instead of doing outreach and organizing in that way, or doing direct education or doing direct service, I was doing more like administrative kind of work. It was a lot of, strategy work. It was a lot of mobilizing resources, work that I love to this day. But like making that transition from being such a creative person who is more, helping develop leadership development, youth development, healing, health plans, coaching, those kind of things, to like now I'm like, thinking about it in a big brain, working within institutions that had nowhere near the creativity and liberation that I had. That shit burnt me out. Exhausted. I would be like, okay, well, I started getting better at like leaving a big thing of Costco like lettuce in the refrigerator at work, and like just like bringing some dried nuts and whatever. Like I have to at least eat at one point, right? And people were like, "Oh, you ain't eating," and like I didn't go eat the KFC that was right next door, but like, I might like I didn't really eat that bad, but like yeah, I might end up doing like just not eating all day, like those kind of habits that like kind of come from a capitalist environment. Or even of being like a stressed out person who's just on the move. Like, no, it's actually your responsibility to feed yourself before it is for you to handle a program that's going to feed 200, 300, 500 people. And like, I'm very proud to feed other people, but then I sometimes like, I gotta feed myself. And I don't just mean in terms of like bread. I mean like literal bread, like my, the victuals we need. And so I think that like that's my big call to action, for the most part, with Teas from Divine, or just from my consulting services and how I like move wellness work, and even just like community kind of culture building, is like we gotta hold space for ourselves as well as other people. A lot of this work, it's a lot of burnout people. You asked me about healing together. Family members, they might say, poo poo. You say all this, but you don't take care of yourself. So why should I do it? They might just, I had family members who made fun of me for stretching. I remember one day, like specifically was getting hated on for stretching, eating salads. Like these are things that were so weird to people who now do those things. So it might have taken 10 or 15 years. Now I've eaten less salads. But then I was like, and I'm not right now. I'm on my salad game. But then, I went through a period of like maybe just like not eating as well. Like I'm specifically thinking about a time like when I was engaged, where like people were like, "Do you eat?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I eat when I do." But like, there's so many things to do, and so like I'm not glamorizing. Like I think like having disordered eating and like that's part of like uh being scattered. I do have ADHD, but I really, came into the healing work. I wanted to heal myself. I wanted to heal my family. I wanted to build community infrastructure for people to get access to what they need and resources. And I've been able to do that in a lot of ways, and be exposed to all these health professionals and all these different modalities. And it's like, okay, so what does it really, take to like apply these things to your own life? And most of the time, it really is just taking a little time for yourself. And so that's why I encourage, sit with the tea. If it's like for goal setting, it's for journaling. If it's to have a conversation with a friend, if it's to work through some deep shit, if it's to have a group conversation over some deep shit, and just say, okay, I know that the hibiscus is an astringent. It's good for my skin. It's good for my reproductive health. It's good for my creativity. I know I got the chamomile in there. That's a nervine relaxant. It's going to help me relax a little bit. And I'm going to sit in this And, I'm going to sit in the idea of being relaxed with my creativity.
Mm.
And that's what I'm going to meditate on today for this little time that I'm with you. That's what we're meditating on for our healing and for the healing of our people. Because everybody needs to be a little bit more relaxed and we could all be a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so how do we kind of bring our embodiment of the work? I mean, I cannot say that I'm doing that in every moment. But I can say that like that is the goal, right? Just like unconditional love is the goal, embodiment is the goal. We put those goals there and we work towards them. We keep working towards them. And so sometimes with people, you got to go at your own pace, no matter what other people are saying. So there were people who have doubted. I wanted to make a healthy food business. Doubted that. Certain kind of tea, certain kind of healing stuff. Like, oh, nobody. I'm like, people pay hundreds of it doesn't matter about the money, but just like me being like afraid because maybe the people around me didn't believe in what now is like people are yearning for. People are crying for this, and so it's like, I didn't necessarily patent that idea, but anyone can ask you if I'm showing up. I'm showing up with herbs, with healing, with knowledge, with food, throwing down in the kitchen, and it's about healing. And it's not so much about the product, although I love to make beautiful blends for people, handmade blends for folks, for communities, for groups. It's about sitting with it. It's about holding that space. It's about, if I share my poetry and that can help, or even if share someone else's literature or lead some journaling exercises or do some breath work. It's about how do we really like have this experience. And that's why I would call it like a ceremony or a ritual, because we have to be intentional with our bodies.
That's right.
It's alchemy.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful that you said that, because it is alchemy. Our relationship with people provides a large part of our perspectives, or it influences us so much, subconsciously, how people think about us and view us. So I think it's healing to take care of your family, because even if they don't appreciate it, you're putting that work in to value yourself in the long run, because you are valuing others. And I think when you're investing in your family, you're investing in yourself.
And people are receptive in different kinds of ways. So it like the thing where you get people is like, you make a bomb ass iced tea. You don't say, oh, come do a shot of neem and turmeric with me in the morning so we can activate ourselves. People ain't gonna do that. They don't even want neem in their toothpaste. And they're tripping. Neem, again, master plant. That is, top of the line, that like, we would say
bitter.
Yeah, very bitter.
Them bitters, you
but
need them bitters in
we
your life.
need those bitters in our life. And it's like, and even just recognizing that just, some of the most potent medicines are in our medicine, or in our kitchen. If you're lucky, if you, I always used to joke, like, if you got to have more than 5 spices or you can't cook. But, maybe not. Maybe if you have 5 of the right ones, you're really getting down. But because simple can be better, right? You don't want to, just like medicines, you don't want to like, oh, I have like 75 herbs in this one elixir. Like, well, you don't know what's really working for you. I mean, it might be a super boost, but yeah, like just cayenne or black pepper or turmeric or ginger, all these things, garlic, like these things are just extremely powerful. So even salt, the right salt, and at the right time and in the right measurement, like, is very healthy for you. And so I introduced, I have a sister. I think I did a salad challenge with her, and I was like showing her, you can put cheese. I mean, if you eat cheese, and it doesn't have to be dairy cheese. You could put, fruits, dried fruits, fresh fruits. You could put, and for some people, I know, like, for we've all had those salads, but like for some people, they've really never had a salad like that. They've had dry lettuce or lettuce drenched in soup, and they've had like maybe some like I don't want to say discount tomatoes, but some like GMO tomatoes, just like iceberg lettuce, like. And I'm not trying to clown anyone, like, because sometimes we do use iceberg, like, right? There's options. So I think that's the biggest thing is like just engaging people in the idea that like I tell my son, you want to build your house of your life, your body. You want to build it with like faulty, like weak materials, or do you want to like have your engines running on like McDonald's oil or coconut oil? You know what I mean? Do you want your skin to be like, smooth like a shiny apple that you ate, or do you want it to be like, breaking down your teeth like candy? You know what I mean? Like, how do you want? Is it a shanty town, or are you building up something well? and you do the best you can, and so reminding people that you have options. We're in the Bay Area, and despite poverty, despite um, food, what we could call them deserts, we could call them cesspools, you know what I mean? Like however you want to like apartheid, like however you want to like think about the food here. Just recognizing that we actually have more access here in California and in the Bay than anywhere else. And I didn't even recognize that until much later because like we don't see farming culture the way we do. I mean, even the way we even do 20 minutes south. And so I just grew up like even with any restrictions on my food. And like I said, food was a big part of my life. My foster parents and my mom both could really get down. My grandmother on my father's side could really get down. My grandmother could. People really put it. And so no matter if like we had a lot of products or a little, or if they were really high quality or not, I was always feeling like I was eating well, which is a blessing. And I don't mean to brag on that, but I recognize that that is a blessing that I need to share with other folks.
Yeah.
So just cooking for people in a healthy way, using alternatives, sometimes not telling them. I remember one time like grinding up mushrooms inside of a vegetarian lasagna I made because people are like, oh, I don't really eat mushrooms. And I'm like, I'm gonna put this in the ricotta because I need protein in my stuff, and I'm not about to be making this big old pan for y'all because you just don't want to try something, right? And so just little stuff, like just the most important thing is like you have to be persistent because it's always going to be like you can't blame nobody for what you don't do for yourself in terms of your health.
Come on.
So it's not like, oh, my partner wouldn't run with me, or like my friend wouldn't try the self-defense class with me. It's like you got to do it. And like I'm saying that to myself because there have been times where like I got in a relationship and like, oh, you're perfect the way you are, which of course we're all perfect the way we are, and we're beautiful and fantastic and powerful. But if you so choose and you would like to train yourself, challenge yourself, see, push yourself and see how far you can go, get better, improve, just feel yourself breathing. That's why I like to exercise. I get to breathe. That's when I like tea. Do we get to do that enough?
No more tea.
We don't get to do that enough. And so that's, so like if you can introduce people through your own living, eventually they're going to want to do it. Oh, girl, why your hair looks so good? Oh, I use this stuff I make. Okay, whatever.
I've had that happen too. Like, man, your skin looking good. Oh, well, you need to try this cranberry juice, this hibiscus, get your water rub, get some chlorophyll. You'll be good in 30 days.
Right. And thank you. I remember thinking another sister had introduced me to chlorophyll. I was like, girl, I don't know. And again, I'm not against healthy stuff, but it's just like sometimes people just have to expose you. And so I always kind of like try to be around like folks who are like-minded about health. And sometimes I failed at that. Sometimes I would be like, damn, like I'm going to this event and I gotta like be the one who brings it. But it is a medicine in being the one who brings the salad to the place where there's no salad. It's a medicine in being the one who brings the non-alcoholic bomb drink to the place where there's lots of liquor. Even if people mix the liquor with it, it's totally fine. Even if there is liquor mixed in it, I've made like really nice infusions that people have enjoyed. It's being able to be a medicine maker is a healing thing. And honestly, I only we can make our own medicines, and so it's just an honor to be able to like share these gifts and these interests with folks because it's really helped me deal with a lot of like PTSD, just kind of get back into my body, and to optimize my health. Like I said, I had some health conditions, and burnout is certainly heavy, and like a lot of people would just say, would go to like straight to like psychiatric medications for the most part, and like caffeine. Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with like using medication if you need it, working with caffeine. I always say we're African people, so when people are like, oh, you shouldn't drink coffee, I'm like, that's always kind of hard for me. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'll drink less, but I'm like, but at
because the same saying because we've been drinking it for so long.
We've been drinking it for so long, but it's about how it's cultivated, right? Nothing is pure really anymore. That's why I'm saying, even if it's just one thing you get, if it's going and getting peppermint loose somewhere and not buying it in a tea bag, a bleached tea bag, you know what I mean? Where they like that's the biggest thing is like I think, learn your medicines, learn your herbs, even if it's just one or two, and it's like one or two at a time. It could take years.
Yeah.
There's certain medicines that, working with for a long time. Or if it's not everybody's about herbs, right? But if it's a food, if it's the one thing somebody does is make their own, sweet potatoes. You know what I mean? I used to know a girl, she used to always make sweet potatoes with like black beans on it or chili on it.
Mm.
And it was often like vegan chili. And I'm like, this is a really healthy and nutritious snack.
Mm-hmm.
You can put, again, vegan stuff on it, or it could be real cheese, or sour cream, whatever you want on it. Doesn't have to. Could have a, but it's like avocado. Like, that's a really healthy thing. And I remember she always had yams. I was joking about it. I was like, girl, you be with the yams. But it's like those people, and she's still my friend today. These people influence you, like,
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean.
right,
And so never discount, like, even my son asking me for tea. I know that's working. Even if I'm like, dang, I hosted ceremony a month and a half ago, but I haven't really been, on it, because sometimes we got to sit with ourselves a little bit more often, right? But to know that, like, there's people around me who will call me and say, Jess, can I come by and get some yoni steam? Can I come by and get some tea for, I have a sore throat, or, you know what I mean? I'm hosting something about healing the sacred inner child. Like, okay, those are it's a psychedelic event. There's all these different opportunities to say, to show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, that's what it really came from, passion more. Like, I haven't, and so I'm. It's been so many years, and I'm like, It's hilarious. I've always just said I have a mobile apothecary, which I do, but it's interesting. As I was like recovering my dreams the other day, I was just like, I've always sat in circle with others. I've been a sacred facilitator, I'm a healer, a mentor, whatever thing, but it's like I've always sat in circle, like, even if it was way back to the original, sitting in the kitchen, amongst it could have been a hut, you know what I'm saying? I feel that deeply, and I think that that's what we need to do. I think that's what we're called to do. And so, as a community builder and like a space holder, that's what I tend to do. And so sometimes it's just one little drop. I've had people like, "Ooh, your tea doesn't have enough sugar." I'm like, "Well, I don't use sugar at all. It's agave or honey messing with me, if you get any at all." Because sometimes we have to do that bitter, right? And then other times it's no, I'm gonna sweeten this up and make this. I want it to feel just like any. Yeah, I just want it to feel just like any other barbecue.
Yeah.
For example, and so, yeah, I just think it's all about, like, just being confident that, like, if you truly have a relationship with your own body and you're doing it for the right things, and you can share that with other people, and they can see how it's working for you, they might not
They
live
gonna
into
rock with it.
They gonna rock with it in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Even if they're like, I'm not gonna, I had somebody clown me for drinking a green juice the other day, and it's like, that's okay, but, like, you know what? One day they're gonna drink one, and even if they don't, like, the fact that like they saw me do it, like, that's important. And I'm not better than nobody. Like I said, I went from being really, really on my health stuff to just kind of being a human, just being a regular person. I didn't really ever I stopped eating, like, fast food for the most part, like, when I was like 17, 18 years old. And that was even, I had to go through major stoner years without fast food. And I'm proud of myself. I was using maybe corner stores. That had to change too. Or, like, I cannot eat a Butterfinger, like, every day. But I still, like, had a different level of consciousness around, and that came from my mother. I didn't,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Come on, we gotta give props to these.
I have to give it to my mother. Jewels on us. My grandmothers both cooked with their hands. Okay. My foster parents, my stepfather cooked with his hands. So I've known folks of all, like, genders and, like, roles in the household. Like, whether you bringing home the bacon, you making the bread, and I don't eat bacon, but yeah, even literally my son's favorite bread to eat is made by my stepfather's hands, and, like, that. Well, it's a machine, but he, but it's like, we grew up making bread. Yeah, that, you know what I mean, and that's,
I've never made my own bread.
Oh man, like, yeah, and it's like that. That's what I didn't recognize how powerful that was. I saw that as a sign of being, like, broke, poor, like, weird. Like, I used to, and I know it sounds so ignorant, but that's, like, where I was at as a child, where I was like, why can't we just get the other bread that other people get, or why do we have to wait for the bread? Oh man, I hate trying to slice it. Like, it's hard to do it equally, but it's like, there's so much, like, the bread is hella good. Yeah, a bread machine ain't nothing to be sad about. Like, you don't have to make, like, hand knead your. But yeah, something like that. That could be just the one thing that somebody does to change the life of their child.
Come on, I think this past 2 years should have woke a lot of people up to the importance of, you never know when you gotta be just ready to just be able to handle things that used to be conveniently there for you.
Yeah, it's too expensive. Like, a lot of things, and the other thing is, like, yeah, we've gotten to a point where it's too expensive to do a lot of certain stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I like I said, I've lived in capitalism. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I definitely appreciate my buying power when I can do that, when I can like delegate that. And I hate sometimes I have to think about that. I don't like the fact that I can pay someone else to do something because is it a fair wage to them? So like certain stuff like Uber and Lyft, like I've struggled with that. I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like, no, you need help. Like I'm a single mom, so if it's whatever, like I've paid before for someone to watch my child while I was cleaning the house, and I paid for someone to clean the house so I could take my kid to the park all day. And like that is that was like a cost, like you know what I mean? Like I'm sure the direct wage. In fact, like I had to intervene and make sure I understood what the direct wage was and like stuff like that. Like you can always, there's always somebody who clean your house. You don't have to use those things where they pay them like $10. Like no, but like so being conscious of stuff like that is important. But like at the same time, I guess I was just trying to say, yes, I appreciate capitalism for some of the access, but I also realize that it's a slippery slope. It's gotten us to a point where one, we're not always appreciative of the actual worth or value of things. And the second thing, like including our food, including our medicine, including our own wellness, it is something that we are to steward, right? We are to steward it in relationship with our doctors, in relationships with community. It's community care, but we have to do the self work to be in community, right? So, you know what I mean? That means you're cultivating relationships with people who keep you accountable. You're cultivating relationships with people who are in practice with you. You're in your own practice, like whatever it is, all these things. But like, yeah, just making, I had a friend who made some mayonnaise, some like a vegan mayonnaise, and made a lot. And I'm really glad she did because now I have some because I wasn't going to necessarily make it, but now I have some. And like just stuff like that, like even just like the impact of like just making an extra jar and sharing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, it means a lot.
It means people so much because again, like we can't get everything handmade, homemade. Like they've actually made it so that it's harder to do everything the natural way. It's actually now it's more expensive to get natural clothes. I could put on plastic all day long, but it's like the other day I was getting dressed and I was like, oh, I have to get like one of my like natural fabrics. Like I don't know if everybody feels that way, but sometimes I feel like I don't want nothing fake around me. Nothing. I was even like, I'm gonna take these nails off.
Like, I think that's a statement in general. Like, yeah, just like a lifestyle choice. Like, what if you just say, hey, I don't want nothing fake around me? I mean, fake being things that are watered down, things that are, not really pure, things not organic, energy included.
Right. And just say, and let me do that fasting. It's okay to sacrifice that. It's not that I don't have access to all these things, but like let me just fast in this way or that way. So for
sober up from the convenience.
Yes, sober up from the convenience of things, whether for whatever it is. So like that's I've done those kind of practices for years. Whether it's been like I'm gonna make everything with my hands, or I'm gonna do like whether it's an actual fast, or I'm gonna do a juice thing. I'm not gonna be on the internet for 6 months, or I'm not gonna be on the phone. Like I know, like the last couple of weeks I've been saying, I'm gonna just read. Like I've always loved to read, and I haven't sat around for hours and days reading in the last several years. I'm a parent, but like, what if I did? Like, what if I did? What if it was only one day a week, like when my son is not, that I just read all day, like a 14-year-old, like a 20-year-old, like someone who I am, like what advantages could that give me? And it's like giving me incredible energy. I've had more time to sit with T. I've had more time to really sit there and journal back and be like, dang, Belle, you were killing it, and really think about like, have I taken it? Like, okay, I read all the, even as a reader. Okay, I read all these things because I, was conscious early. I don't want to call myself woke because I think some people are so woke they need to go to sleep. And I went back to sleep. I went to half sleep for a little while. Like I never like fully went to sleep, but I just like at one point it got exhausting. Like people are never getting there.
Oh my
Are
God.
folks gonna ever get there? Like I'm getting
exhausting. It's exhausting to just be so critical of everything around. That's not a joyous energy. You want to be joyful as much as possible. But being conscious can make you pessimistic.
Right. And I think that's another thing why I had to really work with the herbs because, like, I'm over here, whatever the diagnosis is, I'm going to throw out a couple, even though, I'm not a trained professional. But, whether it's like OCD or whether it's like anxiety or like, having attention to details is a highly important skill.
Yes.
But if you have attention to the details of all the fake stuff, excuse me, and so I had to tell myself, oh, what is material is immaterial. And what is matters. So So what I'm looking at, as much as it's been distracting me and being upsetting me, that's the whole point of why that's there.
Mm.
Is to knock me off my square of my own divinity, of my own queendom, of my own focus, and recognizing like it's all an illusion. What am I really here for? Oh, I'm here to better myself. I'm here to love more. I'm here to keep my heart open no matter how much heartache. I'm here to keep smiling no matter how angry. I'm here to keep pushing no matter how tired. That's what I'm here for. And if I have a couple tricks up my sleeve of how I do that, some adaptogenic herbs or some, rest or even just truly decolonizing period has been the biggest healing journey of my life. And I really started like just recognizing that most stuff was fake and most stuff was phony and many things were put upon us in some kind of system or program to make us slaves financially or mentally, spiritually, socially, sexually. Like, damn, like, okay, this is y'all got me in all the places that I really need to be. So, but what you can't take away is me, right? That inner work for a lot of, and again, I'm speaking like gendered, and I hate to like cut anybody off, but I'll just say like as a femme, as somebody who was kind of molded to be a caretaker and who desired to be so, even before being a parent or whatever, like I'm a giver, I'm a lover, you know what I'm saying? And it's beauty and the beast out here, and people don't want to get caught up, people don't want to get caught up with beasts, so it can be hard to love. It can be hard. And I just mean like, I'm not talking about romantic love necessarily, although, hey, that's a real thing, but like just being in the world, right? Being a vibrant person and being like life is beautiful. Yeah. Thinking life is beautiful, like for middle school. Can you imagine? I'm not in middle school. I cannot imagine what it would have felt like to be me these days. The way I thought life was beautiful and I wanted to explore and I wanted to create and I wanted options and I wanted different. People were mad then. Like, how dare you think about something other? And that's why reading, paired with my tea and being in nature, those are things where I was like, I have to just take this. I took this hit for a long time of being like weird, of being maybe even like stuck up, of different, like whatever it was, not cool, like whatever, all the shameful stuff. I mean, people thought I was weird, like whatever. People liked me too, like for sure, but like it was always kind of like I couldn't really figure it out, like I just wasn't hitting for certain. There was just a certain offness, and I was like, okay. But the more I've like really explored that and been like, okay, yeah, that was embarrassing, or oh, okay, like maybe I wasn't being my authentic self in that moment, and recognizing like the more that I show up as me 100%, the more I'm happy I do. Like the more I'm happy I do, and like even if it means like, and I'm just thinking about like health and healing work where you're saying this isn't healing, this is a toxic environment, y'all are underpaying us. Brothers can't be disrespecting sisters like that here. Sisters can't be disrespecting sisters like that here. We can't be disrespecting ourselves like that here. Whatever whatever the critiques were as a highly critical person who's literally a movement builder and a culture keeper, I needed to do that. And it also put me at odds with people who were like, hey, we're doing the best we can. Because at the same time, we are doing the best we can. And as a group, not just like this shining light who wants to just, I'm like, come on, guys, let's go, let's go. People weren't ready. Years later, like I literally have bosses be like, thank you for your vision. I'm like, damn, you didn't give me a raise for 5 years in a row, but thank me for my vision. No, I was kidding. It's funny, but I can let that. But that's richness right there.
I could have kept my eyes closed and got paid more.
Hey, someone told me today, like every time you bring me knowledge in a way that's beautiful. Like you always give me an aha moment. You taught me how to be healthy. Like when people when people, even if they were at odds with you, like family members, friends, I just lost one that I used to argue with about healing a lot. This has been so heavy on me these last few weeks. We used to fight about it. Now, I would drink with this person, but I knew they had like diabetes, right? I would drink with them, and I knew they were on dialysis. Well, only once. And I'm just keeping it real. Like we have to keep it real if we want to heal. And I did that the one time because after so many years, I was like, I don't want my loved ones to feel so judged by me because I'm not perfect, but I do try to hold. I love other people, and I do try to hold it. Like I'm holding that for you. I'm maybe not gonna not have my drink right now, but maybe I won't for you because you're not well. But I can't say that I've always not. There were years that I didn't drink alcohol, But I can't say that I'm 100% sober as a person, right? I don't have to be necessarily, but at one point I was practicing Islam. Like, you certainly need to be sober. But like I think that even if it's not a religion, if you decide I want to be sober of alcohol, I want to be sober of sugar, I want to work out, I want to do meditation every day, I want to try to levitate, like whatever it is that you're working on, like again, you have to do that for yourself. But it can be really, really difficult. Like if someone tells you, I need to do better about me, and then you see them not, and you kind of like wanna. It can be a delicate dance. Like
you want to heal for them.
You want to heal for them, but you can't because you still got your own shit to heal. You might even be struggling with that same exact habit. You know what I mean? And then the other thing is like you how do you truly love someone for who they are and like let them have their own process but keep inspiring them? Because you push people away when you say, well fine, you're going to be fat forever, and that's, I'm talking to myself, like I've had that conversation like hella time, you know, or it's like
we gotta love ourselves.
No, and we gotta love ourselves. I'm just saying, like, and I'm saying hella times in my life.
Right.
I don't
You
mean
just
like
being
this
honest,
week.
yeah.
I don't mean this week. But as a young person, like that was, you know, I used to have all these like, oh, I'm this and that. You know, I didn't feel good about myself. And I remember one time my sibling being like, well, why don't you do some crunches? Like, what? And I was just like, oh, it's so easy for you to say. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, no, seriously, like, just do some crunches, and like next summer, like, you're not gonna have to feel weird in a bathing suit. And it was like such a simple thing. Like, and this sibling also, like, we got into an accountability practice around our bodies, saying, writing each other apology letters to our bodies, where we all, you know. And so I've continued to use that practice for years from a sibling who was actually going through an addiction and started that process. And then I've amplified it to being like, okay, well, what about the recommitment? What about the forgiveness? We don't just want to be all in shame. And it's like, how do we bring a better experience to ourselves and to one another when we are talking about the heavy shit? Like, hey, brother, you really need to cut down on them spicy hot Cheetos. You know, I see it in your eyes, or whatever, right? But it's exposing people to alternatives. It's whether it's making it, finding it, buying it. It's, you know what I mean. It's like whatever it is. It's and it's also like letting people be themselves. Like that's it's really hard. Like I said, Beauty and the Beast. Like it can be really difficult because that part of us that wants to protect ourselves from losing someone, for example. I was thinking about this OG I just lost. And I remember feeling angry, like, you're gonna die. Oh my gosh, I'm saying this again. I felt that way. And so when they passed, and I didn't feel that way like as super recent when they were, but I did feel that way before. Once they got to a certain point in their journey, I kind of like accepted that like they were just in a different space around their healing. And like that there might not be a full recovery. But that's very difficult. But we have to like, I think life is so beautiful, and I want to be alive. And there's so many days that I took my own life for granted because I was like following the program. I get up, go to work. Oh, I love the fact that I've been in like a similar career for a while. I made a couple pivots, but for the most part, I wanted to help people. I studied community health education. I've done programming, development, community outreach, like, I've organized around justice, equity, health, like pretty much for the most part. Education, a big part of that. I've helped, move initiatives, build, raise money, build out programming and stuff like that I feel like is really great. But sometimes I'll show up to work without having like fed myself, or it's okay to fast if you're intentionally fasting, right? Without having fed myself, without having rested well, maybe in like a total state of anxiety. Maybe my home wasn't clean. Maybe my relationship wasn't healthy. Maybe I didn't give my child like a big enough hug that morning. And so like, I think like reclamation that has been happening over the last couple of years, of people being like, oh, people don't want to work. Shit, life is hard. No, we working hella hard. Like, but like whether it's like we want to show up to a different kind of hustle, we want to show up to a new body, we want to show up to fresh made bread. People are making bread with their hands and stuff. However we're like re-envisioning our lives, hopefully we're decolonizing and whatever, and not just faking a funk for the gram. Like if we can really be present with ourselves a little bit more and just give a little bit more to ourselves, like that is healing, and that is the collective care piece. Is like I'm starting to understand, like I'm starting, recognizing and having patience with people, being like flexible with timing, understanding that people are going to be sad, people are going to be not in good spaces, like you know what I mean, like whether we're leading the meditation for them when we first check in or whatever, or having a check in, or whether we're just holding space for the fact that people are just who they are. Something that simple, like just changes everything. And like in the nonprofit world, we kind of been fussing around that type of stuff. And I mean, nonprofit, like whether it's called, I don't know, like there's part of my work that's like nonprofit specific. There's a part of my work that's like healing specific. Part of my work that's community, and sometimes it overlaps. Sometimes, unfortunately, when tax tax ID numbers pay for it, it doesn't always get the full wellness hit or the full culture hit or the full liberation. But we use the platforms we have, and if we've been having those conversations for a long time about like how do we meet people where they're at, how do we do reasonable accommodations, how do we deal with domestic violence, how do we support someone during bereavement. But like we could certainly get better at them in the public sphere. And now, because of the pandemic, people are having them everywhere. I've seen people in the public health world, which is not strictly nonprofit, and it's almost strictly for profit, really, right? Or it's for like weird tax ID, weird stuff, is subsidizing criminality of the medical system, kind of weird, gross stuff. But like people are like actually saying like check-ins and stuff, and it's weird for them. They're like, oh, well, I went walking this weekend, and it's like, but it's good. Like we're expressing ourselves. We're recognizing that people are full human beings. We're saying, hey, I need some time, I need some space, I need some support, I need some encouragement. And so it's like, my friend was like, dang, the pandemic has turned everything into a 12-step program.
Oh, dang, okay.
And it's like, you know what? Good. We need to take some steps, don't we? Together? Don't we?
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm gonna keep it so solid with you. I've not ever been. I've never really gone to them. I know I've had people tell me for years, like for certain like codependence.
Yeah, I've heard they're very life changing once you go through them, but I haven't experienced it.
Yeah, I'm not against anything. I believe in other kinds of rites of passage and healing, and I think I could certainly benefit from the Coda one. That was one that I was laughing for a long time that I was gonna go, but nobody went with me. That's
a good joke.
But it truly, like for a lot of people who are you have parents who are addicts or narcissistic parents, it's certain kinds of like healing that we got to do from trauma. Like sometimes you might have codependencies, whether they're substance related or otherwise. But anyway, instead of like everything should be, every single conversation should be meaningful. Every single thing, and like making that kind of intentionality around your life. That's why I'm always late. But no,
I was creating intentions for why I was even coming here.
Right. No, but seriously, like if you think about like, if it's like honestly, like you take every moment in a different way. Like I actually see, you see how deep that just got compared. Yeah. It was just the time, waiting the time on that medicine. If you take, if you really embrace every moment and like recognize the true gratitude and being like, yeah, we've been here this whole time. Like, not just your life, but we've been here this whole time. But also like, look how far we've come.
Yeah.
And also like every moment is infinite. So like now that I have that understanding that I'm not on the time of like, it's not just capitalism, but just even being like, the reclamation is like for my own spirit. I'm living in a false reality. I'm living in an illusion. So if I'm here participating, like I'm going to be intentional about the life that I'm living as Jessica, or as like as the life I'm living as this being that has this opportunity to like heal in Jessica's body and like connect with Jessica's community and to like build spirit tribe and build land-based healing rituals with the folks, like for our liberation and for like the generations and for our DNA to expand and extend in wellness. Like hell yeah, because guess what? I was early before, and now I'm late. I'm waiting for people to catch up because it's all divine timing.
That's true.
So we right on time.
We right on time, and I want you to make some time to plug yourself. Talk about your tea collection, and I heard you talk about some of your work, but like, what you got circulating these days, and what do you want people to know about what you're doing now?
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing some different things. I've been mobilizing resources as a community leader. And so I'm helping run a kind of like radical philanthropy community fund.
Okay.
And so I don't, I'm not the CEO, like I'm just the director, but I am very proud of being in philanthropy in like as a disruptor
Mm-hmm.
and as a culture creator, as someone who says, if there's going to be large amounts of money coming into our hoods, people need to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to do the fact checking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to look at the numbers and talk about it. I want to talk to the community members and the residents and let them know what's coming in, how it's coming in. And if I can have conversations with people who are putting this money into these places, I'm going to bring it through and we're going to give it back to our neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And some of our neighbors are going to sit with me at these tables and look through all my documents and keep me accountable so that we can continue to move the work towards the priorities of the folks. And so that's a job that I have. I'm blessed to be the steward of the Richmond Rapid Response Fund. And so that's like my day job. That's what I do. And it's just a culmination of a lot of the work I've done around wellness, recognizing that like economic in this society, like economics is a huge fundamental factor in our well-being.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, it's the psychology of economics that make us feel worthless.
Mm.
And they make us feel worthless in many of these infrastructures that are supposed to serve us, right? It's like really, really, it's ill, especially in the nonprofit world. And so for me to say, like, I want to disrupt this, I'm going in there. I don't have a finance degree. I'm a black mixed race woman who says black before I necessarily like, say BIPOC or like black and brown. And like, I think that's like very important. Although, I am Afro Mexican, I am indigenous, Native American, I'm Italian American, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's important, like that in a lot of this movement work, people say black, 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 black. They get a ton of money. They're usually not black. They're usually not serving black people. They're not developing black people. So, like, if you are black in the nonprofit world, if you're a woman in the nonprofit world, if you have less education, and you're serving black people, if you're saying disrupting white supremacy, if you're saying, that we have an anti-black, that we're disrupting anti-blackness, then you get less. I mean, I think it's already like less than 8% is going to black run organizations. And then so I'm getting even less of that because I'm like a little bit more radical.
And you got to be aware that not only we're not going to get that much funds, like there is an active mission to categorize those who are just enthusiastically black as not just radical, but like enemy, like unpatriotic,
unprofessional, unpatriotic. Like
put on
you could
watch
literally
lists.
be on a prisoner of war for this kind of work.
This is real.
And so over all the years, I always say that liberation is a long game. So through all the work I've done, I am a nerd. I like to read books. I like to study and learn. And so it's helpful for me to be able to use that to work in the system in a different way. Mm-hmm. Philanthropy does have more resources. I had raised a lot of money for organizations. I felt like I built a lot of and designed a lot of programs. I love retreats, healing spaces. I do that personally. Mm-hmm. But in the work, once I had my child, I was like, oh, I can't live off of $40,000 a year and raise a black man to love himself in this society. I can't even keep him safe. So I had to really go within my deep self and think about like, how are my skills transferable? I am powerful. I am meaningful. Okay. I'm not a fully fledged, curandora yet. Like I haven't, I'm not like a master herbal healer at this time. I didn't go to Chinese medicine school. I didn't go study in India, all the things, right? I didn't like, travel studying herbs. These are the things that I will do, you know what I'm saying? But what can I do right now to transfer my work? Well, I can work in philanthropy. And there was just a call for someone to work around health and healing, housing and homelessness, education and learning, and economic recovery and security, and food and basic needs. I'm like, wow, I've done work across all of those aisles. So I have an opportunity now to give people money directly and not even necessarily organizations. And that's a whole nother TED Talk we should talk about. But just because of the way I want to disrupt philanthropy, I believe in investing in people. I believe that you can talk as much as you want about broke people, but putting money in their hands makes a huge difference. And you can't tell me that they can't manage money better than you, when they're feeding their children and taking care of this or that. And so I am working on direct cash responses, for emergency and the pandemic, as well as guaranteed income for that. I'm really working on narrative change. Like, what are the stories we tell ourselves about poverty? What are the stories that policymakers are telling about poverty? And then, like, what's the actual true story? Because honestly, the stimulus, the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, and many of those cash directives have shown huge promise and have like lifted children out of poverty over the last couple of years. No child should be in poverty. People can argue about adults if they want to. I do believe everyone needs to be cared for. It's maybe not everybody's job. In my work, I'm caring for those who are vulnerable to systemic harm. So that means Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color. That means queer folks. That means folks who are radical. That means folks who are decolonizing. That means folks who are organizing. That means folks who are feeding children. And so, yeah, that's what I do in the daytime. But I also, have been working on some somatic healing training and doing some journaling workshops around the apology letter to the body, doing some tea ceremonies like with the sisterhood and with other folks, working with the psychedelic community, helping hold space with folks. So I definitely do a lot of collaborations when folks are holding space to kind of bring in my poetry, my tea. It's like herbal education that can kind of mix that together. And just doing some speaking engagements and just one-on-one work. I think I also shared with you that I am a doula. I have a small 4-year-old child. He's not small, no. He is a big 4-year-old child. But I had kind of taken a little space out because I was like, I really want to be completely focused before I'm really like having a lot of babies. But folks are having them still, and which we love. And more folks are being open to getting support. And so I've been supporting folks a little bit with doula work. And the other thing I do is I provide herbal remedies for folks who are in like pregnancy and postpartum. I work with, like, for example, one of my closest friends is like a pelvic repair specialist and like a women's health trainer, and so like helping make teas for her clients, or other midwives and doulas preparing herbs for them.
Shout out to the doulas.
Shout out to doulas, shout out to midwives and all the birth workers, and not necessarily just because they have the paperwork. I think like I'm very big on like they're really in the birth worker movement right now. There's a lot of extracting of resources that like people are saying, oh my gosh, Black women are dying, which like, yes, we've been saying that. But now they're giving more money to hospitals than they are to like people who have been doing the healing work at home. And so it's like, you're giving more money to these monsters who created the problem because they're racist and because they're just super clinical and weird. And now you're saying, okay, well, this doula program through this particular institution is gonna solve. And I do think it's important that we do build out avenues such as that. But no, shout out to folks who are doing it at home still. Shout out to the birthing centers where people have been in solidarity for a long time, working together. I mean, like a lot of doulas work together, a lot of midwives work together, a lot of folks are training and learning from all over the world and from these ancient practices, because there's so much more than just like there's so much sacred practices that really come from the feminine arts that and I don't know, like there's masculine arts that like I'm not privy to in this time, and like I'm gonna focus on the feminine arts like for me, and that's where it's flowering in my life. But like I think the feminine arts, those are the ways of healing and the ways of preserving, creating, and producing our culture. Like, and the women, I believe, teach men how to love, and I don't necessarily just mean necessarily through romantic relationships. I think through the worlds we build and like through the space we hold. And I think everyone does that for one another. I'm not trying to be super gendered. I recognize that like that's a place of sensitivity for a lot of folks, but that's like my truest understanding as a woman with like 6 brothers, like who has a father who's loved a man, or a couple, you know what I'm saying, like who has a son. I really think it's super important that like we just honor that, like, and recognize that like in these spaces, like these sacred feminine spaces sometimes that are literally within ourselves, which is why it's so important that women are confident in themselves and that like embrace that loneliness to a certain degree. You don't have to be in a pack of baddies, like what I'm saying, like we're all bad, but like what I'm saying is like even I've been surrounded by awesome, awesome women, and at times still been really alone. And like had to check with myself, like why do folks want me around? Sometimes they want you around because you're funny, because you're the protector. Sometimes because you're cute. Sometimes because you got the plug. Like whatever the story is, just as an adult, really recognizing that like I'm so glad that I have given so much of my life to other people. It's actually my legacy. Like that people can say like, damn, you really have my back here, there, or everywhere. And the best part is I'm young enough and I'm this pandemic, having my child, all the life lessons, the biggest heartaches that happened at one time for me to shift and say, you know what? I'm in my career and that's great. But like I want to write poems again. And I want to be like doing healing ceremonies and like I'm seriously gonna like instead of just having moon circles with tea with my friends, like I'm gonna be in a big pavilion and do it and just do it. And just like it happened. Like how did it happen? Well, the whole world shut down. I decided the most important thing was healing in my child. I was able to go camping with large groups, like whatever it was that like shifted the world so that like me who used to be really on my grind and very career oriented, like, and to a fault, because I hadn't done enough of the work, I was like martyring myself. Like I was doing the work, like for real, but I wasn't doing the work within myself. Like I was
just
facing the hard conversations, but I wasn't facing like what's the next step to elevate. Well, the next step to elevate is as much as you get, you did the test, you took the sacrifices, you gave, you opened up your heart, you did all those things, you learned and mastered these things. Now, what's deeply inside of you, you know, and what can you bring forth from there? Not just what have you produced and what have you managed and like what have you held and what have you created? Because I've definitely created a lot. And to feel so powerful to be like, damn, like that was just an idea. I remember doing some work with E.S.O.teric building healthy communities. That ended up turning into the Black Cultural Zone, which exists right now. I was the president of that board.
Oh wow!
And at one point, we were talking about we need to create a community endowment.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't happen at the time, but I now run a community fund. Like, and just saying, like, I didn't even know where that came from.
Manifestation.
Right. Yeah. I used to say I want to run a foundation. I didn't even know what a foundation was. I was like 12 years old. I thought a foundation just kind of meant like a community center that had like good intentions and that you would like be like supporting the community. Yeah. Well, now I recognize that the foundation is myself, right? And that if I want to be big mama, like I got to go big in. Yeah. And one of those places is, with the tea, with the writing. And so folks can always hit me up to have tea at JTruth Divine. It's JTruth_Divine. I'll make sure you get it so you post it or whatever. On Instagram, folks can hit me there. Folks can email me. I'm a nerd. I still use LinkedIn. And just have some tea. I'll send you some tea. I'll meet you for some tea. You can have your own tea, whatever. I love to have conversations about how we heal together. Okay. How we, holding space. And then, like I said, I love to help support especially communities that are like already cultivating closeness and trusting and building relationships. That's really where it's best to come through and to have like a tea circle or to have ceremony. Because if folks are really ready to have that conversation, but even not, there's ways to like have a day event where folks are able to just like do some journaling, and usually always paired with some somatic work, because we're sitting and holding space and we're putting these herbs in our body. We're having a lot of conversation. We're gonna need to move it through as well. Yeah. And so keep that energy flowing. Yeah, and so that's, right now, I like I said, I've just done a couple things recently. Really was taking like such a huge break to kind of focus on my son, but some things are emerging. So was really honored to do some stuff with We Take Root and Healing Cycles of Harm, which I remember I was taking the workshops here, and we're gonna do some more of that work together in terms of like the journaling and the working with tea, and actually with some other healers in that space. And gonna just continue, like gonna create a couple more spaces. Like I think the goal was like I wanted to hold space 3 times, and then it just happened right away. And I was like, and it was other folks just inviting me, so I was like, okay, no, I need to intentionally hold space 3 times. I had taken a break, and I was like, oh no, this year I'm gonna hold. Now it just kept happening, and so yeah, I think that like I'm gonna try to get better at like putting it out on the socials. I'm not super active on a regular basis on my socials, but I do respond to folks. Okay. And I do engage, and so folks can see a little bit of what I'm working with. And I think that I do have some tea blends that I'm going to put out that I've been working with just for my own healing. So I always like stop and do some work. So like, whatever it is, if it's like, I'm working with someone who's pregnant and I'm starting to like work a little bit with that, like, seeing how those particular blends are going, or if I'm working with my own wellness in some kind of way, or my son. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Making herbal popsicles, that's the lick for summer, y'all. Instead of putting all that
Mm.
sugar in your kids, like you know,
Herbal
um,
popsicles, y'all.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to
So
try that.
so yeah, right now I'm just in community. Like I'm really just out here. I've kind of always been me doing this, and yeah, folks can connect with me there. And then I'm always open to collaboration. Um, and I think folks will see a little bit more from me. Right now, I'm doing some writing projects,
Okay.
and so I'm going to release some of my poetry. And some
All
folks
right.
know that I used to do a lot of poetry, and I've integrated into a lot of my work as an educator. And I just recently started kind of getting back on the mic again, and so I think that's really where my heart's at. I
We're gonna
lost,
have you come through to the Verbal
yeah,
Apothecary. Yeah.
absolutely. You know, I lost my father a couple years ago.
My condolences.
And thank you. And like I'll say, like he always told me, he's like, you be talking like a motherfucker. Can I say that? He be talking, but he's like, but you keep writing. You know, I write poetry.
Pop sound funny.
He was such a funny person, such a funny person. I learned so much from him.
Like I love you, baby, but god damn.
Right, but he was like, but seriously, like you should keep talking, but you should also write. And I think that I did write, and even like I said for my work now, I do a lot of writing. I'd be like writing briefs. I'm like, no, and I laughed about that. I'm like, I just wanted to write poems like on the sand, like that was what I wanted in rose gardens or whatever. And I still write poems, and I think that I just at one point, I again in the work, sometimes they split you. So sometimes like they're like, we need a cultural artist, so they might come like pay you to do a poem, right? But then if you're the program thing, they don't want to, like, you know what I mean? Like they put you in a box. The work is super weird. And it's like, no, like I am a space holder and a facilitator, and I'm the person who wrote the program. I'm the person who raised the money. I do all those things, but I think that it's like, again, folks are hungry for art again. And even me, like, it's not to shit on nobody else, but it's like these are words that are mine that need to be told, right? And so just saying that at one point I was like, oh, I can't really tell this full story until XYZ passes, or my family would be really upset. I got a big family. My family would really not be happy if I talked about this, which I in public and in the work, I'll do it because we have to get to that healing. But to be able to be completely brave and to be completely out there, that's that inner work that's hard. And so I think that, like, um, I've been pushing myself there. So I've been doing a lot of, I really, really like going through old journals, notebooks, really working on my writing and working on my voice. I used to have a great stage presence. Now it's just, things change. The loss of confidence. I'm a survivor of many things, but like, also just like usually when we're trauma survivors of any kind, it could be a car accident, getting back into your body, you know what I mean, is so difficult.
Right.
And I'm highly cerebral, as you know what I'm saying? So it's like, once again, I got to get back into my body. And if I can really get there, maybe there's where my voice is at, right? Or like, if my voice is cracking, why? Like, can I go into that dark place and love on it? Like, what if the most embarrassing, like, I've thought about that recently. Like, somebody said something to me that was like, probably like one of my saddest things, or like something that might have hurt or something. And I was thinking, like, at this point, I actually almost don't care if everybody knows. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Like, there's a part where you just like recognize, like, the like shame is useless.
Yeah, it doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah,
It happened already. So.
It already it enslaves you so much, and like the most important thing is just to like even if it's even if you did something that was shameful, like you got to work that out. That's a personal journey. But like allowing the pain to stifle your growth.
Because you're not supposed to stay there, right?
Yeah, you cutting your own wings. You're cutting your own wings. So it's like, I think that, like, of all the no matter how we like use best practices to help each other heal, it's like we got to do it. Like, we got to actually go through those processes, and that takes transformation. So no one is really the guru. Like, you know what I mean? No one's really any. I mean, we can definitely share and learn from everybody, but we're all just a reflection of each other. Like, and if the more we can tell the truth, and that's why Jesse Truth. My middle name is Ruth. I am a little ruthless, and I used to get in trouble for like, and that's what the fuck it is. I do have that reputation. Some people are like, I had a homegirl recently. Yeah. Hyphy movement. I survived it. I said I wanted to go smart, not dumb, but I did have to go a little bit dumb because stuff was looking crazy. And like, I had a friend just recently tell me, like, it's so weird. Like, you're so much more free about what you're saying, but you're so much more calmer and sweeter about it. And I think, like I said, part of that is I give it up to my child. Like, at some point, like, I mean, my world split, right? And so it's just like, you, that's a whole other thing. Like, I think for a lot of women, like reclaiming themselves back, and it's not about your body necessarily, and it could be, right? But it's just like, learning your own identity when you like completely like you have to care give for another person, like at that
Yeah.
level is just so intense. And like, I know everybody has some level of it, and I know that with women, and I've experienced like it being a little bit more of like something to come out of. I love being a parent, don't get me wrong, but like, I feel like I'm still rehabilitating from having a child 4 years
Mm.
ago.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, right? Like, there was heartache on top of it, divorce, like a whole like career change. I mean, so many things shifted. Then the world shut down after that. I was already depressed. Like, the whole
Like, what's
world.
up, guy? What's going
Yeah.
on?
And I remember saying to you, I was like, I can't lose anything else. Like, I can't take any more loss. I think I said, no. I had to learn. Yes. And the fuck you can't.
There's more loss coming.
Because you need
I
to
don't know what
lose
to
a
tell you.
lot of whatever it is. A lot of that stuff needs to just get up off of you.
Mm-hmm.
We got to compost the grief. We've got to get the chip off of our shoulder. It's like, I didn't even know I was sad about things from my childhood because I already had a chip on my shoulder from what I was going through as a young adult. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it was like, oh, I forgot about, okay, now I got to reface that and whatever, because I was just like grinding, like just trying to survive, always trying to be open to opportunities, doing different things, trying to expose myself, trying to grow like a motherfucker. I was trying to grow, so, like, spreading my wings, like just whatever, like, oh, I'm going to go camping, like meditate, like whatever it took. Like, so people were like, you're weird. It's like, I never really kept up a full meditation practice for more than a couple years. But the fact that I tried, and I can say now, like this, I'm trying to get back into one. I'm just proud of myself that I did do that as a young person. No, nobody's perfect. They're practices. They're literally practices, and you can't have them all. Like I said, I tried to expose them all. I wanted to like be able to, if I do all of those things, then I will heal.
And then there's just a lot of anxiety, and then
what is healing? Like, it's like there's no end to the healing. What if I could just live? What if I do all of those things as I live? And what if I heal as I grow? And like, what if I grow as I accept? Like, you know what I mean? And on and on and on and on. And so having a child for me took away a certain level of perfectionism.
Right.
And I had to be self-accepting. Like, I am actually, I mean, I'd be thinking some great shit, but I'm kind of boosting sometimes. Like, I can't keep up with my own standards. Like, I have some high standards, and I'm so glad that I thought of those standards. Those are some good gold standards. But if I'm coming in at bronze, right, certainly shouldn't be hitting somebody else upside the temple with the gold. And like, you know what I mean?
That's a bar.
But how do I inspire? So that we can get there together, right? And so that's it. That it's like really like recognizing that, like, I've always had this interest in healing and like just holding space with others and caring for others and making people's day. I love to bring tea to people's house. I like to shit. I like to wash people's dishes. I like to bring snacks to people. Like, sometimes people don't ask, but if you offer them, they'll take them. And everybody needs to be loved on a little bit. And so for me, loving on people, I started learning like I need to love on myself. And by the time I got really good at like achieving and being like, oh yeah, I really got this self-love shit down, and I got my career down, and like everything's great. Then I became a parent, and the world shifted. And then my own personal world shifted because either delusions I had, or maybe things just transitioned. And I had to recognize, okay, but you know what I'm not willing to do anymore? Sleep on me. And for some people that means, oh, go get the bag or whatever, which it's on its way. It is on its way. Abundance is, like I was telling you about the hot water upstairs. Abundance isn't always money. Sometimes you have like more than enough and more than enough. And sometimes the money like is just something you're distracted by. But like, you could recognize like you have a lot.
Count your blessings and be thankful.
The blessings, be thankful. And sometimes the most biggest thing we need to be thankful for is our own self. And I'm not just saying like nobody's helped you. Yes, people have. Nobody is alone and solo. And there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of stuff by themselves. But what I'm saying is that like that blessing of like my true authentic self has led the way from the gate.
Come on.
And I don't even know how I got here, But I remember that she was on her way a long time ago.
Shout out to yourself.
Yeah, shout out to yourself. It's like, damn, that feels so good.
And I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Shout out to yourself. That's the first step towards any health practice. You got to understand that, you know, you are your greatest, you the MVP. You know, you got to fill your cup up before you can fill up somebody else's. And that process of even acknowledging what level you at in terms of your cup. Are you empty? Are you midway? Are you full? Like that process may not be as quick. You know, you may think you was full, but really you halfway, you know, and it's no shame in just saying, you know what, I need some time to refill on myself. And then also giving thanks to the decisions that you made that have led you where you are, good and bad. So
Right.
shout out to yourself. We at the Verbal Apothecary. Thank you, Jessica, for
Thank you.
sliding
Thank you.
through.
Thank you.
Make sure you tap in with her and peep out them herbs, get some tea, chill out, relax. And we're going to keep bringing y'all them herbals and them verbals. Peace.
Peace.
I got that CMOS, baby, call me a CMOS, baby. Do that body good like CMOS, baby. I'm a leader, I'ma take you to the treetop, baby. I care about your health, did you hydrate lately? I got that CMOS, baby, call me a CMOS, baby. Do that body good like CMOS, baby. I'm a leader, I'ma take you to the treetop, baby. I care about your health, did you hydrate lately?